Okay, this is part 2 of episode 1. My recording stopped. I think it was too long, so I am on question 6. Okay, so Charles mentions that, like, to him, music is really important. He wants to, like, do something in that field with creating and producing music, it sounds like. He also says the teachers can finish it. Okay. So I think that from his viewpoint, it's like him actually just trying to like do his thing. Like he really, like when he has his headphones on, he's really just genuinely interested in the music. It's not like he's trying to block people. Well, he did say that in the hallway when his headphones are on, if they're not loud enough, if he can still hear people trying to get his attention, which honestly, I think that's a little bit rude, um, but he music is like something that's actually important to him. Whereas like I feel like the majority of the students walking through the hallway aren't listening to music just because like for the main goal at least of like learning the bass line or understanding the rhythm of the song better or like whatever it may be. um so I think from his perspective, he mentioned 2 goals of listening to music in the hallway and stuff. If one, he's actually interested in the music, like I said, and like wants to like do that with his life, or like wants to actually like do music as like a hobby or as a career one day or whatever it may be. And his other thing, he said something about how like he doesn't want to be able to hear people trying to get his attention in the hallway. So I think that's a little confusing because like I want to be like, oh Charles, you seem like a good dude, like you have good intentions and you really want to listen to music and like that's okay, like. But then part of me is also like, um, that's just kind of ignorant or rude, like to just not to make sure that it's loud enough so you can't hear anyone. Um, which goes against like which is like not a good reason to listen to it. I feel like so. Um. Okay, so his viewpoint is like that's his viewpoint, I guess. So like it's a good and a bad one. Whereas like the teachers are probably getting offended just because like they don't think that he's listening and like because they I'm assuming most of his teachers are good teachers and like want him to like thrive and persevere and do well, succeed in his homework and stuff. And if he has earphones on in class, he's not going to be able to do that. If it's loud enough where he can't hear anything. And even if it's not, like it's still I feel like it's just overstimulating. Like it's even if it's not loud and he can still hear what the teacher's saying, he's still focusing on that, whereas he should be focusing on what he's learning in school. So that's my thoughts on the issues. On the issue is that like headphones in the hallway, fine. Like I don't really care in the hallway. In my high school, I had a small high school, and we weren't allowed to have phones like anywhere, and they had to be turned off in our lockers. And if they went off in your locker, if you had them on you at any time, it was supposed to be a detention automatically. Um, I usually kept mine in my purse with me, or like my pencil case or whatever I was carrying that day, just because of um, with all the violence in schools anymore. Like if something was to happen, then like I always had my phone and my keys with me at all times, but I had it off and so like it wouldn't go off and I didn't ever like check in the bathroom or anything. Like I didn't really care that much. So I think that like for me, technology. Okay, so I'll be teaching elementary students. I specifically want to teach kindergarten if possible, but if it's not possible, just anywhere in elementary aged grades. Um, I feel like most elementary students shouldn't have technology. I mean, every situation is different, but I don't think that they should in general as a blanket thing. Um, like they shouldn't even own it, but if they do, I think I'm going to make it so that they have to keep it like shut off in their locker or their backpack and not have it out because even just in the hallway, like I feel like elementary students aren't old enough and mature enough. Honestly, I can't think of anyone that I even know that is. So maybe there's one here and there that is mature enough to be able to like stay off their phone and only go on it like when they need it. Like how I said in high school, I carried my phone around with me, but I kept it off and I never was on it because I was mature enough to be able to do so and to realize like I'm here for school. I'm not here to be Snapchatting my friends, which most of them were in school with me anyway. But I feel like elementary level students aren't able to make mature decisions like that yet because they're just not old enough, which is okay. But because of that, like I feel like I need to make the decision for them of no phones or technology in the classroom. And if you do have a phone at from kindergarten through 5th grade for whatever reason, if you need one, and you have one, which is obviously becoming more um, common as the years go on, which is kind of messed up, but whatever. Um, but if they have technology, for me, I will say that they cannot have it in the classroom and they need to have it off in their locker. And if they don't have a locker, then it needs to be like on their backpack, on their hook in the hallway or like whatever. But it should not be in the classroom. Um, because again, the only reason I could see valid to carry it around is if somebody is mature enough to carry it around so that if something was to happen, if some emergency was to happen, they would have access to call their parents or to call whoever. But even then, schools have things in place of what the kids are supposed to do, and the kids should be listening to understand those policies so they know what they need to do. And like especially in elementary schools or like elementary leveled grades, um like the students aren't really mature. Honestly, like if there is like a big emergency going on in a school for whatever reason, elementary age kids aren't going to be able to like they're not old enough to be able to make smart decisions on their own most of the time. So like as a teacher, I would be like there to make the decisions for them, like what's going to happen, what they're going to do, how they can stay safe, because they probably can't even make that decision on their own anyway, just because they're simply too young. Which is the only reason I would see fit to carry a phone around. But even then, it should still be off and everything. And like for Charles, relating it to the Charles thing, yeah, he's interested in his music and he puts it on in the hallway. But like, what the longest passing period I've ever heard of is 5 minutes. That's what, one song, maybe 1.5. Like, can you not do that later on in the day? Like, yeah, I get that you enjoy music, but like, I don't think it's important enough. I don't think that one song every passing period, so like 7 songs a day, is really going to make that big of a difference in your love for music, because it's maybe 7 songs to 10 songs a day, and like that's not that many. So like do it another time. Like do it before school if you really want to do it that bad. Wake up earlier and listen to music and like analyze it then. But like that's a hobby. If that's the reason that you want to listen to it is because you genuinely are interested in the lyrics, the anything, whatever going on with it, then like I feel like that is a hobby, and that's hobbies aren't meant to be done at school. Like if I am interested in reading as a hobby, it's not like I'm going to be just reading during passing periods. Like no, there's a time and place for my hobby of reading, and that's not during passing periods. But yeah, that is my opinion. That's my thing. I'm going to handle that in the classroom by saying that it's not allowed, and if it is, then I will honestly I'll go by the school's policies of technology. Like if it gets caught, like my high school policy was if you get caught with it, it's an automatic detention. And your phone, your technology thing gets sent to the office and put in a plastic bag until the end of the day. And after your detention, you can get it back. Like from the teacher that was hosting the detention. So like whatever the school's policy is, that's how I'll handle it. But I feel like there's not much I can do as an elementary level teacher, because like there's probably not even going to be much of an issue. And if it ever does become one, if those young students are having technology and bringing in the classroom, then I'll just follow the school's policy, because yeah, honestly, I think there's bigger issues in schools, but that's just my opinion. Okay, what is going on with Tiara? Okay, I'm gonna play it. Also, something, okay, this just reminded me of this because Charles just said the N word, like the slang version of it. And like he was like saying a rap to his friends in like what looks like the lunchroom. I think that's a huge thing too, is like this is like kind of the thing where I feel like everybody's oversensitized, like what I was talking about earlier in the first video. But like if black people are gonna sit there and say the N word, whether it's in music, whether it's in their casual language with their friends, whenever they're using it, whatever the circumstances are, I think that if black people are gonna use it, then white people have the right to use it too, because I feel like that's just as stupid as it sounds. Like that's people of color, like black people in this video, are complaining of not getting the same privileges and like not being allowed to do the same things and like say the same things as white people, but they're doing the exact same thing by, again, it's not really applying to the video, but like when people say that, I know so many black people that aren't okay with white people saying that, but it's like, is that not doing the same thing right back? Like whether they deserve it or not, you're doing the same thing. So I think, I don't know, that bothers me, but I don't think anybody should use it. Or everybody should. I feel like it needs to be one or the other. he's sitting here saying it to white people in his song. So like, whatever. I don't know if he has a problem with it, but okay. Tiara. Okay, so Tiara, what is going on with Tiara? She seems to not really be motivated to do well, try hard, or put any effort in all her classes except for choir. She says she likes choir because she wants to be a singer. That's like her dream thing to do with her life. Her sister mentions about her that she has never been in like a situation like the schooling that she's had hasn't been like aimed towards minority students like succeeding at all. So she's just always kind of had the mindset of like, oh, like I don't need to succeed. She says something about how she doesn't want to be going to like Duke or Yale or Harvard or whatever she said, and that's okay. Like that's I think that's totally okay. That's there's nothing wrong with that. I don't want to be going to Yale or Harvard either. Um, but I think that that's not why she should be trying hard in school. Like it shouldn't be to go to Duke, to Yale or Harvard. I forgot. I think she said Duke too, but is Duke that good? I don't know. But um, that shouldn't be her reasoning for doing well in school. And if she's a high school student, she's a sophomore, and I think that if that's her natural thinking of like, this is why I need to get good grades is to go to college and to go to a good college. I don't think that she's been brought up with the right mindset on education. The point of education up through high school is not to go to college, or it shouldn't be if that's what her teachers were making it. Like not college isn't for everyone. Honestly, college should not be for everyone. It is not for everyone, and that's okay. And if she doesn't want to go to college and she wants to go do vocal lessons instead to make a career out of it, then good for her. She should do that. I think college is a safe option because if you have a degree, it's you have something that other people may not have to get a job someday. But I don't think that all jobs need degrees, and you shouldn't. If you're going to be going to do voice lesson, like or if you want to be a singer like Beyonce, maybe you shouldn't even go to college. Like maybe it's just a waste of time and money, and that's okay. But I feel like she's been brought up to think that I need to do well in school so that I can get to a good college or just a college in general, but like specifically a good college. And that's not, I don't think that should be the goal of education. And I don't think that is the goal of education. Um, Again, like I feel like it obviously was, or teachers were having that goal in mind and emphasizing it a lot because that's why she's thinking like that. But I also think that um, she, like, I feel like she's being misinformed. But to motivate a student like Tiara, I feel like it's too late to like probably change her complete mindset as bad as it sounds, but like from a younger age I think that she should have been motivated by like pursue, like being encouraged to pursue her goals and her dreams of for a career, whether that takes college or not. She shouldn't be motivated to be like, the motivation she seems like she's been getting for so long, especially through high school, it sounds like, is get good grades so you can go to college and so you can go to a good college. When really the goal should have been like get good grades to better yourself, to show that you can work hard, to show that you can succeed in anything you put your mind to. And whether that be a chemistry test or whether that be acing a concert that she has for choir, like whatever that may be, whatever that task at hand, I feel like getting good grades is to show that like you can do that to meet your goal someday. And like even if it doesn't directly have to do with your goal, it's still, I feel like everybody's goal should be to be like the best version of themselves that they can, and teachers need to make that clear to students that like that is important in life. And I feel like all that they've been emphasizing is get good grades to go to school and go to a good school, like for college. When really they should have been like get good grades to better yourself, to be the best version of yourself, to show that you can work hard, to prove yourself, and to like be dedicated and have something that you're working for, have a goal, and like even if and like if her life goal is to be a singer, then like work hard in your other classes anyway, like just to be the best version of yourself that you can, and to like put in the effort that will pay off so that you can get into whatever school you want to, if you want to, or like to have more options open in the future if your thing doesn't work out, or like whatever maybe. But that's an interesting question. Would any of the teachers in chapter 1 be able to connect with her? Honestly, I don't remember the teachers in chapter 1. It's gonna take a really long time. I don't even know where the teachers are from chapter 1. Do not remember like anything. Oh, yeah, intrinsic actions. Okay, interesting. Okay, so this one is Alita Lasky. I don't think that lady really. What was the question? Motivate or relate to? Connect with her. That is an interesting question. Oh my gosh, this is gonna take forever. I feel like from the ones that I've seen, I just said the opposite, but I feel like the first teacher in the little yellow spiel thing, I can go find her name, Alita something, Lasky, I think it was. That might have been completely wrong. But I feel like she could, because she was talking about how like good teachers aren't just born, they're made, and I feel like this type of, yeah, Alita Lasky, Elida Lasky, Elida Lasky, I think. Um, I feel like she would connect well with her because, like, it sounds like Tiara just wants to like be a good singer and doesn't really want to put in the effort to be a good person or a good singer. She just wants to be it, like without having to put in the work. And like I feel like this teacher just would relate to her or connect with her because like her mindset on being a teacher is like you can't just be a good teacher, you have to work for it, and it takes effort and hard work and dedication. And that's what Tiara needs to realize in her life too. And I think that this also, I think that also because of her mindset on teaching about like working hard to be a good teacher, I feel like this would be like a student that she would have to work hard on, and she would want to like be the best teacher she could by working hard on this student and not giving up on her, because she would take a lot of, I think that she would take a lot of work to get through to. And that Alita Lasky, I think is her name, she could connect well with her because of that, because I think that they kind of have opposite mindsets, but like because of her mindset on teaching, she would be able to like really put in the time and work that needs to be put into TR for her to want to do well in classes. Okay. My school's not that big. Okay, Keyshawn. Is that his name? Keyshawn says that after seeing so many people he knows give a bet. Hope you arrive. What is going to happen in these series? Remember that? I don't know. Shit, my computer's gonna die. Ah. This video is okay. Okay, so he said something about the failing or whatever. I feel like so about himself, he says that because he's a young black male, then like he just is automatically like set up for failure. Um, he thinks that people see him as a certain way because of that of the stereotype of like the high school black male. And so they don't even like want to try to get through to actually see him for him, not for the high school black male that he is, which he is, but like that's not him. That doesn't define him or how he is and it seems like people don't see that. He says. He says he's matured. Has he? It's kind of hard to tell. I feel like I can't really answer that question because in the video I don't like get to see like him as a whole. Like I'm seeing different perspectives of what people think of him, which doesn't actually define him. And the only things that I do see that define him is like how he acts and the way he talks and stuff, but I can't like compare enough to how he was before to how he is now to be able to judge that, I feel like. So I don't know the answer to that question if he's matured or not. And in the video, like he's obviously gonna act different for the like he's gonna try to act well for the camera, and I just don't know if he always acts like that or not. Like he was saying yes sir, yes sir, yes sir, thank you, like using so many manners, which I would hope he would do that all the time. I hope that any student would do that all the time. Not necessarily that much. That was kind of a lot, but like I just would hope that most students would that students would be respectful anyway. But like in this case, it would just be that he would be respectful anyway. But I don't know if he is because like when people turn on the camera, like well, right now I have the camera on me and I'm trying to talk more properly and I'm not trying to talk how I normally would like with my friends or like a teacher that I was really cool with, I guess. Like I don't know if that makes sense, but when a camera's on you and the spotlight is on you, like most people are gonna act different in a good way. But so I don't really know. I can't really answer that question, I feel like, because has he matured? I can't really tell. How would you motivate a student like him? I would just try to get to know him, like outside, like not outside of school, like not outside of the building, but like outside of school, like what are his interests? What does he love? What is he passionate about? Like try to get to know him, not the young black male that he is, because that's not all he is. How would I rate his self reflection? I feel like I would rate him. I feel like honestly he does good self reflection to an extent because like he is like realizing like I'm more than this, but I feel like he's not acting upon that self reflection and he's not being like aware of like how he's acting because um he's not like necessarily trying really hard to like succeed because of like the quote he said like that in the next couple questions or whatever. So I feel like he's like able to self reflect, but he's not acting upon it, and that's his problem. Like he's not real, like he's not treating himself like he's more than that by doing well and proving people wrong. So like why does he expect more from other people? Like he's not setting the standards high for other people. In his head he is, but he's not like doing something to set those standards high. And I think that's an issue. Mr. Lesniak, I think, is the first one that was interviewed that was like saying that like he like was talking about the bad things about him. So I think that both teachers understand that he can be like a problem student in a way that like he needs extra work and everything. So comparing, I think that they can both like that they both can like think they both realize that he needs some extra work and stuff. However, I feel like the first teacher, who I'm assuming is the first one in this problem, Mr. Lesniak, I feel like he was just talking negatively about him and like, but wasn't like, he was like saying all the issues, but he wasn't giving a solution. Whereas like that's not a good teacher. Like, yeah, you can sit there and point out the issues all day, but if you're not going to do something about it and you're not going to be proactive and do your job of being a teacher by finding a solution for the student or like to work with this student and you're not going to show that effort to work with him, then like you suck. But and Mr. Grosser, I think is the second guy that was talking more positively about him. He acted way better with him, like or like Keyshawn. His interactions with Dr. Grosser, I'm assuming again is the second one where he was saying yes sir and thank you a lot and stuff. I was way more positive than his first teacher because he was respecting him. He seemed to want to he was treating him the same way he was other students that weren't the same as him, like demographic wise, or like how he looked or anything. Mr. Grosser saying that he knows he has preconceived notions. Furthermore, what are your thoughts on this is number 10 on Mr. Grosser saying that he knows he has preconceived notions and that he so like he acknowledges that Keyshawn like thinks that people have preconceived notions about him and thinking about the racial bias, and I think that he still anyway acts the same to Keyshawn as he does Nathan, who I'm assuming is the white kid that was sitting next to him that stood up and brought the book over. And so he still treats him the same, which I think is good because that's what should happen, obviously. How does he address that himself? I think by he Stresses that understanding of himself. Wait. I think he says that like everybody in society needs to like just treat everyone the same or something along those lines. And I think that he tries really hard to be proactive about that and to treat Keyshawn the same as he treats Nathan, or like Keyshawn the way as he treats any other student, despite their backgrounds. Based on the information in chapter 6, how would you connect these ideas, attitude towards students mentioned? Chapter 6. I do not remember what any of these chapters are off the top of my head. I don't know how people do that. What makes teacher effective? Okay. So I think that, what's the question again? I cannot focus. Okay. How would you connect these ideas to the attitude towards students mentioned? Okay, so I think that, is there just one attitude towards students? I feel like each of these teachers has like a different one. I feel like that's a weird question. Okay, so I think that in general, a teacher's expectation that all students can succeed seems to make a difference to students. Okay, so if that's the attitude we're talking about, like that teachers should think like should like expect that all students can succeed. What is the question? My brain is fried. So I think that Mr. Grosser like uses that mindset of like all students can succeed, and like he realizes, like he acknowledges in the video that like society has different expectations from different types of people and has different preconceived notions or judgments about certain types of people. And I think that Mr. Grosser like realizes that, and he tries really hard to not do that and to break that societal habit. And that he has the mindset that teachers should have, that is mentioned in chapter 6, of that all students should succeed. Number 11, what does he mean by that? So he means that like after seeing so many people that he knows, I'm assuming he's talking about people of color, black people, black males specifically, because that's like him, that he's seen so many of them like drop out or fail or whatever it may have been, that he's like sitting here like, why try? Like I'm just gonna end up like them anyway, so why would I put in the effort if I'm gonna I might as well fail freshman year if I'm just gonna fail senior year anyway. And conversations about the self-fulfilling prophecy. So the self-fulfilling prophecy thing from chapter 6 is like you have to be able to believe in yourself, and like you have to fulfill it yourself. Like you can't, if you're just gonna go by what everybody else, what's happening to everybody else around you, and think it's just gonna happen to you, like yeah, it's gonna happen. But if you have the mindset of I'm gonna succeed anyway, then you can succeed. And you will succeed if you follow it. If you just follow that mindset and you fulfill your own prophecy. So I think that because he's sitting here talking like, oh, I'm going to fail because everybody I've seen like that fails too. Yeah, he's going to fail then. Like, and that has nothing to do with the teachers. It has nothing to do with with the classwork. It has nothing to do with anything but his own mindset. And he's going to fail mostly because of his mindset. And the teachers, and if it's hard coursework or whatever other obstacles may be there, are just obstacles getting in his way. But who's to say he can't just get over those obstacles anyway, which he could if he had a different mindset and he fulfilled his own prophecy, like whatever, chapter 6. How would you handle a student like this in your class? Okay, I already talked about this, but I would just like get to know him, like make him feel like he's more than just a young black boy, young black student, male student, whatever he said. And I think like, literally it's just as simple as that. Like I literally think that's it. Like that's the fix. And it's frustrating that his teacher, that one first teacher, Mr. Lesniak, didn't do that. How would you handle a parent who says the same thing? I would just tell the parent that like, if that's what they're gonna teach their kid is to think that they're gonna fail like that, then yeah, they're gonna fail. And like, why? Of course the kid's gonna fail because you're teaching them that everybody else is failing, so they're probably gonna fail too. And if you're gonna set that example for them, then like, honestly, you're a horrible parent. And honestly, like, that kid's gonna fail, and it's gonna be your fault as the parent and their fault depending on how old they are. Oh gosh, my high school is so much different. So I think that this school is like, I don't think my high school could be any more opposite than this high school. So I went to St. Thomas More, which I loved but hated because it was like, I loved how I could like express my faith and stuff, which has nothing to do with this. But like, I do think that I hated it. The reason that I did hate what I hated about it was just that like money is power, and like my family didn't have the money. Like most of these students in here in this video that are being focused on in this video, and so they're just being pushed to the bottom and constantly being overlooked and stepped on. And like I get that. Like I was one of the 5% of the people in the school that got tuition assistance, and like it sucked. Like it sucked feeling like you had no power and like your family had no power, and you just always had to do what everybody was like telling you, like even if it wasn't right, because if you don't, like, because you're like, this sounds so stupid and ignorant, but like I feel like I can relate. It's like I was in my school, there wasn't much people of color, but the minority was the people who got tuition assistance. That was me. And as stupid, not really important as it, like, this obviously isn't even close to the extent of these students by any means, but I feel like I can't empathize with them and understand them, because like they don't care, the teachers don't care about, as much about you, because you're not of power in the school, because you don't have the money, and you are, you don't have as, you have like different expectations than other students, and they just kind of like don't really look at you, like they don't really see you for you, they just see you as like the kid who couldn't afford to go to school here and takes the school's money, and like, and it sucked, like, and I get that with him, like, or with these students or whatever. So I feel like the big deal about this, okay, so they said the big deal about this school, not the history, is that like there's a lot of diversity. They said that a lot of the conservative people moved out of the town, and then a lot of new white people, younger white people, came in that were very liberal. So I feel like it's a pretty liberal school, but there's also a lot of diversity, which is cool. And that's like a big deal about it. And the teachers seem to understand that, not always act upon it well, like Mr. What's his face, but they like seem to realize that. So yeah, just comparing to my high school, it was, honestly, there's nothing that I think that's like the only thing the same is that like people were discriminated against because of whatever they didn't have that everybody else had, whether that be skin color, or whether that be like in this video, or whether that be the money that was in my high school. And I think that the big difference is just obviously like there is maybe five, like I could name all the black people on my hand, like with my fingers, that went to my high school, and I can name all the Mexican people that went to my high school on my fingers. Like there's there was just all stuck up rich white snotty kids, and who had everything handed to them, who never learned hard work, who are gonna take over their parents' business someday and not have to lift a finger, and just gonna make millions of dollars, and like good for them, like good for you guys. But I think that it's so different because there's so much hard work that like I had to do, because I don't come from a background like that, and I don't just have, I'm not just gonna come show up to school in a Lamborghini at 16 years old, and like, so like I feel like I had to work extra hard to make up for what I didn't have that everybody else did have in the school. And I feel like I can relate with that with these black students. Like they don't have all the rights and stuff. Not that I didn't really have the rights necessarily, but I just didn't have like the same, I wasn't viewed the same as everybody else. And like I feel like that is the same in this school, of like how there's minority groups of one in one way or another that in both of this school and that school that like had to work extra hard if they wanted to succeed, and if they didn't, then they just failed. But yeah, my high school is just so different. It was so conservative, but like to like a fault. I think that they weren't even willing to acknowledge anything but what their beliefs were, which is like very ignorant. I feel like, yeah. Again, thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Micah says that diversity is not the same as equity, but doesn't. So I think that diversity is not the same as equity for number 13. I feel like diversity is just having the numbers. Diversity is having having numbers of each population in one area. But that doesn't mean that they're treated the same. Equity is like when everybody is treated the same, everything is fair. Like to me, equity means fairness, whereas diversity just means like having every type of person there just to check them off the lists and say that they have them. But then really when they get into the school, they're like, okay, we have black people, okay, we have Mexican people, okay, we have Indian people, like whatever it may be. It's just to check off a list, and like, but then once they get into the school, then like they're just mistreated anyway, or like overlooked, or like not cared about in like the same way that the other students are, or just like other people are in general in whatever community you're talking about. To me as a teacher, I think that like I want to do bilingual schooling. I love the diversity. I love cultures. I love languages. I love other people that aren't like me. Like a lot of things that are really important to me in my life, my best friends don't believe in that. Like one of my best friends is atheist, and faith is a huge part of my life. So like, and I appreciate that in people. I feel like I appreciate differences in people, and I appreciate that diversity. So because I know that for sure, hopefully with the school I'm going to be working in, I'm already going to have that diversity to an extent. I am excited to be able to like implement the equity part of it, and to teach my students again from a young age, so hopefully they'll maintain it the rest of their lives, that the equity is like the most important part. Like it doesn't matter who you're around. You can be around the same people, you can be around different people, but you have to understand that they're all equal to you. Nobody's better or worse, just by nature, and that everybody's equal. Like as super as corny as it sounds, like everyone is equal. And I'm excited to like, to me as a teacher, that means like especially from in a bilingual school where there's a lot of diversity, or in I don't remember what I was gonna say, but I feel like I'm excited to, like, it means a lot to me as a teacher, that sentence, because I completely agree, and I can't wait to like implement the equity part, because the diversity part hopefully I think will already be there in the kind of school that I'm aiming to teach in one day. So far in this video, I mean, like, I feel like it's going so many different ways, like from one race to another, that the diversity is obviously there. There's so much diversity in that school, at least from black and white perspective, like of black and white people being in that school. But I feel like the equity isn't going one way or another. Like white people aren't treating black people right, and black people aren't treating the white people right. And like whether they deserve it or not, I feel like both ways it's wrong. Like the black people didn't want the white people to come to the assembly. That's wrong, I think. But I also think that the white people that made them feel uncomfortable having them there is wrong too. So like, I think that there's so much, there is no fairness or equality in that school, even though the diversity is there. Okay, so then like with chapter 7, dealing with the equity issues pertaining to access to technology, like a lot of minorities come from, in general, like it says that a lot of minority students come from lower socioeconomic parts of the town, or like levels, like classes, I guess. But how are we supposed to connect it with technology? I mean, in chapter 7 it just says like not everybody has access to that technology just because like they can't afford it because of their like how much money their parents make or whatever it may be. And like people of minority groups do tend to come from poor backgrounds in general, as a rule, not a rule, like as a generalization, as it says in chapter 7. But I think that like in this school, for example, if I was to try to connect it, I don't know how, I don't know how to connect these, but if I was to connect it, like maybe just that students in this school like could all have access to technology by like tax money. Maybe like they could all get like a tablet or computer. And I know a lot of like I think all the Champaign schools, public schools, and Urbana public schools did that within these past couple of years. Is like everybody gets a Chromebook and then they get to keep it after graduation, which automatically sets them up for success in college to an extent, because then if they go to college, because then they already have the technology that they need. Yeah, maybe they can do this in this school or something, but I don't really know if it has to do with anything. But yeah, like the diversity, people on the lower end of the diversity, the minority end, who aren't being treated fairly, thus the lower end. Not like they're worse, but just they might not odds are like they have a higher chance of coming from a lower socioeconomic background, which means that they won't have as much access to that technology. So like a lot of these kids in the school are probably dealing with the issue of access to technology. How does this work? Okay, I'm gonna skip that question because it's not even typed out all the way, so I'm a little confused. Okay, Charles says that so I think the positives are like staying clustered to people like you, or like raced, like this that are the same race of you as you. I think that the positives are that like you do share a common like background, probably to an extent, because like your culture, odds are your culture is similar or the same, and odds are if your culture is similar or the same, you were raised with similar interests, values, things like that, which are huge things to like connect people. Like people who have similar values can be connected very well. People who have similar interests can be connected very well. Like through like things, you can be connected more easily to other people around you. So people that are the same race are going through the same issues, possibly, like especially in the school, may have the same food interests because of their culture making similar foods to this culture of the other person, and it might be the same culture, I don't know. But I think that like that's a good thing, that they can share those interests and those values and that like those similarities that they have because of their racial background, and like thus maybe probably their cultural background, but not always, obviously. I think that that's a positive. A negative, I definitely think, though, is that like then they're not being exposed to other cultures and other backgrounds, and I think that's again why from a young age like they need to be, so that later on these issues that are happening in the school won't be happening at all, if or very much if at all, because from a young age they were like encouraged to meet people and be close with people of other racial backgrounds or like cultural backgrounds or just different sexual orientations or religious affiliations or whatever it may be. Okay. Also, why do you think Professor Lorenz thinks it was wonderful that a black student? I think that Professor Lorenz thinks that it was wonderful that a black student was president of Club Latino, because it's like it shows, or like there's that diversity there, that like that black person is appreciating the Latino culture and like really putting effort in to understand it, and obviously loved it enough to become the president of the club. I think that's why he would like it, and I agree. I think that's really cool. That's amazing, and that's an interesting thing. Like I feel like there's always like it's always another culture to the white culture, or like something to white, like black people being interested in white culture, white people being interested in black culture. A lot of times it's like white people being interested in a minority culture. But I like how those are two like minority cultures, and I think that's really cool that like they're not even just trying to be interested in the majority culture, but also not necessarily also, but they're showing interest in another minority culture, which I think is really cool. And I think Professor Lorenz, if you're listening, you would think the same thing. And that anyone and everyone is welcome to join the club. Yeah, I think that's awesome that everyone can join the club, and I think that he would think that's awesome. I mean, he told me, if you're like, or you, he, I'm gonna speak in third person because I don't know if you're watching this or he's watching this, but he asked me to join the Latino club at Parkland, and I really wanted to, but I just genuinely didn't have time. But like in high school, like I helped run the like Spanish Honor Society or in Spanish Club and stuff like that, and I loved it. And I think that it's cool to like let anybody join because then it brings that person's culture into the culture of the club or the group, and then it also brings the culture of the club or the group to that person's life that may have a different culture. And I think that like so there's like two ways. It's not just the person like the white person learning more about the Latino culture. It's also the Latino culture learning more about the white culture. And I think that like diversity in like education or like awareness of diversity goes two ways every single time. I don't think that it's just like for the Black Lives Matter movement, yeah, Black Lives Matter, but so do white lives, so do Mexican lives, so do Spanish lives, so do African lives, like or that's Black lives, but like there's so it goes two ways every time. Also, I just realized I keep saying Mexican just because a lot of my Hispanic friends are Mexican, or my Latino friends are Mexican, but and it's just close. That's very ignorant of me. I'm sorry. I should be saying Latino, not Mexican. But yeah. How does this connect to chapter 3? What in the world is chapter 3? I do not remember. Oh, okay. So like, with chapter 3, wait, what was the question? What it is? Oh no, that's wrong. So to chapter 3, I mean, chapter 3 just encourages like multiculturalism, diversity, like acknowledging that in classrooms and stuff. And I think that like that's exactly what I was just talking about. Suppose that I guess. Yeah, it has everything to do with chapter 3. I don't really know what else to say besides that. Okay, I'm going to do the rest of this video later so I can go to the bathroom.